If you've been following Nikon closely in the mirrorless era, there's a certain tension in the air right now. The mirrorless market has never been more competitive, and Nikon knows better than anyone that small missteps get magnified instantly. That's why conversations surrounding a potential Nikon Z8 II aren't just rumor-driven excitement. They feel like a real turning point. And that brings us to today's deep dive, a realistic, grounded look at the Z8, the unexpected discounts, the growing leaks about its successor, Nikon Z8 II, what the community is saying, and whether this next release might be Nikon's true redemption moment. One of the biggest signals that something new is coming isn't always a leak. Sometimes it's a price tag. During Black Friday 2025, the Nikon Z8 experienced its most dramatic drop since launch. Nearly $800, it hit $3,497 on Amazon, then dipped even further to $3,399 at Walmart, a price that stunned even longtime reviewers. For a camera frequently ranked among the best mirrorless bodies for astrophotography, wildlife, portraits, and hybrid filmmaking, this was not the kind of discount you typically see unless something is shifting behind the scenes. The most interesting part wasn't the price itself, but the behavior around it. Stock disappeared quickly, came back briefly, then vanished again. Reviewers who don't usually comment on pricing suddenly spoke up, saying they wished they had waited for this discount. Some said openly that this was the best value the Z8 had ever offered. And whenever a pro camera drops this sharply during a major sale period, two interpretations usually circulate. Either the brand wants to push as many people as possible toward its system, or a successor is close enough that Nikon wants shelves cleared before making a move. Black Friday alone doesn't confirm a new release, but the timing, combined with the consistency of Z8 II rumors, created the perfect storm of curiosity. For many buyers, the discount felt less like a deal and more like a nudge. Leaks around the Nikon Z8 II have been unusually consistent. Not flamboyant, not exaggerated, but steady, almost restrained. That in itself is revealing because when the same details repeat across multiple sources, it usually means the upgrades aren't wild departures, but thoughtful refinements. The biggest rumor, and the one everyone keeps discussing, is the push toward 8K 60p with improved heat control. If Nikon solves the thermal limitations that held the Z8 back during long-form recording, this alone would be a massive step forward. Some insiders claim Nikon is aiming for effectively unlimited 8K recording without requiring an external fan. Considering the complaints filmmakers voiced about the original Z8, this would directly address one of the camera's most significant criticisms. Another rumor gaining traction is improved codec support, supposedly influenced by Nikon's acquisition of Red Digital Cinema. The idea isn't that the Z8 II will suddenly become a cinema camera, but that internal 12-bit RAW or higher quality ProRes RAW options could become standard. These kinds of upgrades would push the hybrid identity of the Z8 II far beyond a simple refresh. There are also consistent whispers about the sensor. While early speculation suggested a jump to 67 megapixels, the more believable reports say Nikon will refine the existing 45.7 megapixel stacked sensor instead of replacing it. Faster readout speeds, cleaner low-light performance, and better control over rolling shutter artifacts are the types of improvements that feel both realistic and valuable. Autofocus is another area where Nikon is expected to make noticeable progress. The Z8 already performs well, but there's room for smarter subject recognition, more responsive 3D tracking, and AI-assisted scene learning, something Sony still leads in. The Z8 II potentially closing that gap could shift the conversation among professionals who depend on consistent, intelligent AF behavior. Then there's the ergonomics, which might see subtle but important refinements. A deeper, more secure grip for telephoto work, a brighter EVF that matches or surpasses the Z9, a more sunlight-readable LCD, and slightly improved weather sealing. None of these changes would be flashy, but all of them would raise the camera's day-to-day reliability. Taken together, the Z8 II Leaks show a picture that is believable. a camera designed not to revolutionize the market, but to correct the friction points that held the Z8 back. Before talking about redemption, it's worth acknowledging what the Z8 already does right. It's an exceptionally versatile camera. Its silent shutter performance alone transformed how many photographers shoot wildlife, events, and portraits. The 45.7 megapixel stacked sensor remains one of the most capable on the market. The handling is robust, especially with large lenses, and for many photographers, the Z8 feels like 3 cameras in one: high-resolution full-frame, ultra-fast DX crop for wildlife, and a medium-resolution JPG machine when efficiency matters. But no tool is flawless. The Z8 struggled with long 8K recording sessions, and though firmware updates eased the issue, they didn't fully eliminate it. Battery life isn't poor, but it lags behind the Z9, which many professionals depend on for heavy shooting days. Some shooters still report occasional banding and extreme artificial lighting. Others dislike the single CF Express slot, especially those who shoot weddings, journalism, or commercial assignments where redundancy is essential. And the early strap lug recall, though resolved quickly, introduced a shadow of doubt among cautious buyers. These aren't catastrophic issues, but they left room for Nikon to deliver a refined version that feels unquestionably complete. The Nikon community is full of honesty, humor, and occasional chaos. Some users joke that they'll wait for the Z8 III because something better is always around the corner. Others report small frustrations like banding or missing mechanical shutters. But the overwhelming sentiment is clear. The Z8 is one of Nikon's best cameras in years, and its value only increases when used with modern Z-mount lenses. Photographers upgrading from the D850 often describe the Z8 as a generational leap. ZF shooters enjoy their retro aesthetics, but admit that the Z8 feels like a more serious tool when paired with professional lenses. Landscape photographers praise the Z7 II, but acknowledge that the Z8's autofocus belongs in a different category entirely. And many say that if they had to choose a single Nikon body to handle every type of assignment, the Z8 would be that body. In short, the public sees the Z8 as powerful, capable, and extremely versatile, but not untouchable. There is room for a sequel, and people want one. The Nikon Z8 II, if it arrives with the improvements we've been hearing about, could be one of Nikon's most meaningful releases in the Z system. This wouldn't be a flashy revolution, but a well-earned evolution. A fixing of flaws, a tightening of screws, a restoration of trust after early recalls and heat complaints. This is why many call it Nikon's redemption moment. If you need a camera today, the Z8 is still one of the best hybrid bodies you can buy, especially at its Black Friday price. But if you prefer waiting for the most refined version of a proven concept, the Z8 II might be exactly what you're hoping for. Either way, it's an exciting moment for Nikon shooters, and more importantly, it feels like Nikon is listening again. What do you think? Share with us in the comments. And as always, thanks for watching.